wild horses and turkeys and raccoons. Yeah, when we were at the middle ground at the bathroom area, there was a raccoon who was just posing, and you could go stand by him, and he would smile for the camera. Yeah, they got deer jokes too, you know. Hey,
the new name you just gave me?
No.
It's one of the ones that you
It's
had.
Ruwa.
I did. Yeah. Was that Josh's voice? Okay. I thought it was, so like, it was like a tad like whiny tone, so like I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a microphone that you can use.
Okay.
It's already on.
Better not turn around now.
Courthouse steps were actually at the bottom of the courthouse. And there was a big railing.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a barrier between us and everybody. Why did they do that? Well, somebody said they thought it might be political.
You think?
But there were places on the other side. I scoped it out after I left you at Panera Bread. There were 2 or 3 spots we could have gotten on the other side. They were down further from the business. Nobody said anything to us.
Did anybody come over?
Few people.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah. And see, the best place to be is right in front of the bathroom.
Well, actually, we were right across. Really have a banner on. Should have brought a banner.
So why didn't you just pick up and move? So how did you know you needed to be at that facility? Right. Well,
Mine rode back. And when I went over on the other side, there were more younger people. They play old music kind of thing. They don't play that much. So I think
right.
Good morning, everybody. Woo. All right. So we are super fortunate. A minor development with this program that we host. We're now live streaming it. So for anyone that misses it or they're just not able to get here this morning, they can watch it from home live or they can watch it after the fact, but just making sure that we're connecting all of our Cherokee Democrats 365 days a year. My name's Nate Rich, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Cherokee County Democratic Party. Thank you guys so much for being here on a Saturday morning. I know there's plenty of things to do, farmers markets, grandkids, it's summer vacations, like go on a beach, for the love of God. We're just glad that you guys are choosing to share a little bit of your morning here with us. We are so thrilled for the program this morning, running a few minutes late. Thank you for your patience. Without any further ado, I'm just going to quickly introduce Ruwa Romman, who is a legislator down in Atlanta. Remind me your district, Ruwa? 97 West Gwinnett. So Ruwa, I think right now there's this like frustration with the brand of Democratic Party nationally and at the state level. Where's the leadership? Why are we using the same 1950s respectability playbook? Because the other side isn't playing by the rules, and we keep tying our hands with process and procedure and doing this high road route. And for the low God, that doesn't work. The day and age that we live in is different. It calls for a different type of politics, and it calls for people that are have some fire in their belly, and they're strong communicators. And we're not just talking about policy in an encyclopedia book. We've got to learn how to talk to folks and do it more effectively. And Ruwa, I think, is one of the best we've got in the state of Georgia, a rising star nationally. And so we are just so glad to have her here this morning. Ruwa Romman.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you for your patience. I explained to Nate I was actually running early, and then one of my neighbor's dogs, which I didn't realize was my neighbor's dogs, was like running around the street. So I had to go figure out whose dog it was. But we're here now. We're getting started. It's great. Thank you for being here on a Saturday. Thank you for being here on a gorgeous Saturday and spending your morning with us. My name is Ruwa Romman. As Nate mentioned, I represent House District 97, which is West Gwinnett. And as a state representative, I like to joke that nobody knows what we do, but we are sometimes the only name or face that some people know. So they all think we're in Congress. Which we are not, which means that a lot of times we get asked a lot of questions, so we kind of have to know a little bit about everything. So during the Q&A, feel free to ask about whatever it is, and if I don't know the answer, I will find it for you. I am actually going to run through some quick legislative updates that we had. I'm looking at this PowerPoint that we made as a caucus just to remind me of things in case I forget them. But the best way I could describe this legislative session was probably the most unproductive session that I've experienced. This is my third one. So I just got reelected for the first time, and it really did feel like a corporate giveaway kind of session, for lack of a better word. There wasn't a lot of, usually they'll kind of try to, and when I say they, I'm talking about Republicans because we don't control any branch of government right now. But what they try to do is they try to say, okay, we're going to do this special interest thing for a rich friend of mine, but we'll at least give people a little something on the side, We didn't see a lot of that this year. In fact, a lot of the stuff was way worse than it needed to be. So, for example, they've been trying to do a bunch of half measures on healthcare, and so we didn't actually have any bills passed to close the healthcare coverage gap this year. Actually, not one. Normally, there's something about screenings being covered or something or another being covered. In fact, the fight this year, and I will never forget this, was about the mental health part of the budget. That's the only thing we have to do. If there's nothing else we do, we've done our jobs. And we were looking at what the Senate was trying to change in the House budget, because it starts in the House, and the mental health stuff was gone. We're like, what's going on? So they go ask the senator who took it out, and I kid you not, this is a quote that a journalist told us. He said, if somebody wants to kill themselves, it's not my job to stop them. The amount of cruelty that, and I start with this for a reason, because I think people sometimes think that we're exaggerating when we talk about the amount of cruelty that we are seeing as each session goes by, right? And the problem is that the meanest of the mean are now so loud and frankly so powerful that their more quote unquote reasonable colleagues in their party don't have the same power they used to before. In fact, this year, and I'll go into the next piece of this, was that they kept, their typical thing is they love giving out some kind of tax break or tax refund because they can't properly budget and they don't want to fully fund our services. And so they gave the typical one-time payment back of $250 per person or $500 per couple that's filing. But then they also did House Bill 111, which none of the Democrats voted for, and it literally gave $750 million to the top 20%. So for all that we would have gotten back as a tax break, it would have been about 19 cents per day for the average family. The top 20% are getting back about $750 million. That's $750 million of unfunded programs, of less people getting the care they need, of more government inefficiency. Because remember, if you don't properly fund government, it's not going to work right. And then people get more mad at it, and then it becomes this race to the bottom. We had a bunch of your typical anti-trans, America First license bill. Actually, we had 3 anti-trans bills. It actually would have been ended up 5, but we ended up doing a walkout. So the House Democrats, it was amazing. So our chair went up to the front and she was just kind of like, why are you so obsessed with people, like what's in people's pants? Like this is getting really weird. Like, do you know how many counties don't have an OBGYN? Half in Georgia, by the way. Do you know how many kids are going hungry? Like she was just like asking them all these questions. She was like, this is a waste of time. You keep talking about how this is about taxpayer dollars. It's really not. Like, it's not even cents on the dollar compared to everything else that you don't even know you're properly funding. So it was really cool. We weren't sure. I mean, we kind of knew, like we didn't make it a caucus position. We weren't like, you have to walk out, but we strongly urged it. And as soon as she finished her piece, Leader Hughley hit her excuse button, and you literally can see every single House Democrat, with the exception of maybe 5, like walk out down the center of the aisle. The temper tantrums were incredible afterwards, very much worth it. And they still are trying to do a temper tantrum. In fact, they tried to, they just released an ad about it, and me and another colleague decided to do a voiceover of it and just like make fun of them. So we try, it's been fun. Trying. Like we said, there's no point.
The numbers, how many trans kids are there that they're fighting about? Like,
Exactly, we don't.
one in the state?
So I actually asked.
It's a numbers thing.
So I asked Representative Josh Bonner, who carried the Senate version of the bill that he wanted in his own House. They passed 2 bills about the same thing, by the way, when it comes to trans kids in sports. And we asked him how many kids, and he's like, I don't know, because the answer is 0, right? When we're talking about trans, yeah. One of them was about like trans inmates. We asked them how many there were. They also didn't know because the answer is maybe less than 5, if that. So like, and it's funny because when I was asking the representative who did the 2 bills on sports, and I put like that in quotations because it's so stupid, because they don't really care about sports. If they did, they would be making sure that like women's teams are fully funded like the men's teams are. A lot of girls have to practice like in the dark, like super early in the morning, because they prioritize the boys teams in schools. Most of them don't even have coaches. A lot of them are just like volunteer teachers. I mean, if you're serious about like, oh, we care about like safety and girls sports or whatever, like those are the ways you could go about it. And I had asked him that on the House floor, and you know, I remember, because usually they're like, you give and take and you say like, does the gentleman yield for one last question? And he just goes, no. And I was like, okay, I guess not. But like I said, we passed 2 budgets, right? The amended one and then the big one. There was still about we allocated $113 million for an emergency fund because of Hurricane Helene. There's actually still a lot of damage around the state, especially in the south on the East Coast, in places like Augusta. And we're trying to prepare for some federal fallout, which is why we've been trying to kind of keep putting a lot of pressure. And it's working. Like even Marjorie Taylor Greene was just kind of like, sorry, I didn't read the bill, and I let like an AI preemption through. That was great. Oh, I'm sure she's very sorry. But you know, like I said, they had 5 trans bills crossed over, but only 1 housing bill crossed over, and thankfully that one did pass. So a lot of companies are now buying out homes. Any entity or person that owns, I can't remember if it's 10 or 25. Like this is the part I always mix up because it kept changing. But point is, 10 or 25 properties or more, you have to have a point of contact in the state to be able to call. So like if the house next to you is getting like really run down, there's no upkeep. Currently, it's really hard to find somebody to talk to. This bill mandates that there is a point of contact residing in the state to be able to contact about the state of the home. We had a bunch of housing bills. I introduced a housing bill. Representative Gabe Sanchez introduced like 3 different bills, one related to AI price fixing on homes and housing. We had Representative McCollum tried to introduce a bill that said no corporation or entity could own more than I think it's like 400 units or something like that. None of those went anywhere, right? Nothing on the minimum wage, nothing on like more workers' protections. Even the bills they wanted, right? Even the bills that Republicans wanted that would make anything better also did not pass. Like I'm really like, normally I can go out to these, legislative updates and say like, here's all the terrible things, yes. But like, we worked really hard and got this through on a bipartisan basis, and it really felt like this year I can't do that. To the point that I actually went to the speaker and I said, the House used to lead and we're just not doing that anymore. And so, like a lot of sort of, thankfully, some people are starting to understand this, between the walkout that the House Democrats did, but also the fact that we're just like refusing to play nice in committee hearings. So I don't know if y'all heard, but there was unfortunately it did ultimately pass because we're still in the minority, but there was a bill that if Fani Willis is removed from the case due to misconduct. So it depends on how it's like a technicality, but the point is that Fulton County would owe Trump and everyone else like back pay essentially. They would have to get their fees revoked, but the problem is there's no cap on it. So counties could genuinely get completely defunded as a result of this, and even the governor didn't really want to sign it, but the Democrats actually walked out during committee, which broke quorum, which meant that they couldn't pass it. So they had to try like 3 separate times to pass this bill. So we're trying to like use whatever mechanisms we want. There's still definitely people who have very long-standing working relationships across the aisle, which I do too. There are people I work really great with, and I sit on the Energy, Utility, and Telecoms Committee, which means that we're always trying to figure out how to get around Georgia Power. Like, they have killed every bill that anybody's introduced, Republican or Democrat. So there is still that camaraderie that we're trying to do, like where it makes sense, but I think this is the first time that like Republicans are like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Like after we did our walkout, we came back, and this is genuinely an exaggeration, no less than 15 Republicans took me aside individually, like, what are you guys doing? This issue polls so terribly for you. And I'm like, then why are you upset? You get to punch us politically. Like, you seem so mad about it. And they're like, no, we don't get it. Like, how can you be so stupid? And I'm like, well, okay, like, thank you. Yeah, like, but it's not just that. I mean, it's so fascinating because I looked at them and I said, is there any district that can be flipped by its population of trans people or trans inmates? They're like, no. I'm like, is there any race that is dependent on trans people? They're like, no. And I'm like, that's actually exactly the point. You want me to punch at people who can't punch back? That's called bullying, and it's unacceptable. And it's fascinating because they just kind of go, and get like really uncomfortable and change the subject or walk away. Because like, I think they get so caught up in this like game for them that they genuinely forget that they have a responsibility to people to not be jerks. On a personal level, when I was younger, I used to have to get like a form signed by, this was when I was in middle school, so a form signed by my team and a form signed by the opposing team to allow me to play wearing a headscarf. I used to play basketball. And the reason is there was a very similar bill written almost the exact same way. The first trans kids in sports ban bill that was passed like 2 years ago, it's written almost the same way. And it was the same reasoning. We just want to protect girls in sports, and we don't want people to have an unfair advantage, and blah, blah, blah. Like, and I tell people, like, if you look back in history, you can just like essentially like, it's almost like ad lib, right? Like insert new like group to target here, but it's the same attacks, same kind. I mean, really, it's genuinely the exact same. Yeah, just who's gonna be the punching bag for that current time period. And so, and I told them, I was like, on a personal level, I've explained this to you for the 3 years I've been here. I'm not trans, I don't know what it's like to be trans, I come from a conservative community, and at the same time, like, y'all keep messing with everybody, I just don't trust you. Like, it's not a, like there's so many other things. I really mean it. We have 40 legislative days, right? We've spent easily at least 5 to 8 of them on a bill, targeting a very tiny group of people. So, unfortunately, I wish I had more to say. Like, yes, we did fully fund the Hope Scholarship again, which is great. We have continued to protect the free school and lunches program, although we're not really sure what's going to happen with that as federal funding keeps ebbing and flowing. We don't know what's going to happen with the budget on a federal level. And a lot of it was so interesting because we said, how are we preparing for some of the federal uncertainty? And every time we did, we got yelled at. It didn't matter if it was me asking it, Scott Holcomb, who's like a very well-respected like representative by everybody in the chamber, because it's like they know it's a problem, they just don't want to talk about it. So we're trying to like force the conversation because a lot of, schools, right, hospitals, even farmers, right, like so much of, they don't want to admit it, but so much of Georgia relies on federal funding. All of it, right? Even some of these corporations and companies and factories that they're building out, right? Where do you think they're getting their tax breaks and their tax subsidies? It's part us, part federal government. So, and we're required to have a federal budget. So there is a good chance we're coming back for a special session. They keep saying there's no way. I know. They are actually completely remodeling both chambers. Like, if you go now, you can't go in there, but it's like all scaffolding, like everything's gone. It's kind of terrifying. But I was talking to our doorkeeper and I said, oh, cool, like, do you think this will be ready by January? He goes, no, they are actually working 7 days a week because they want to be done by October 31st. Wow. Why October 31st? because that's when we start to feel the impacts of any kind of federal funding changes. So like they're clearly like building contingencies just in case, but telling us there's no way that's going to happen and there's no way that there's going to be any kind of impact from the federal government. I'm like, you can call me stupid and like naive and young and whatever all you want, but that's not, your actions are saying something very different, and everything happening on a federal level is very different. So, you know, some of my colleagues and I have been actively going to different parts of the state, like coming here, going down to Savannah, just going everywhere to be like, hey, here's what's going on. You know, we'll keep pushing back on it, right? Procedurally, media-wise, like publicly. Me and Senator Josh McLaurin started our What's on Fire series to just kind of like explain what's going on a local and federal level, and just like on the internet, right? Like talking to people directly and explaining to them what's going on, reminding them of important things like the upcoming Public Service Commission's primary election, Deborah Shigley's primary election, or well, technically it's an election, August 26th. You know, all the different ways that everything, and like outside of electoral politics, right? The different boycotts, the different protests, all of that kind of stuff plays a really, really big part in applying pressure. So that's kind of like, it sucks and it's terrible. And at the same time, for the first time ever, that anti-trans ad that we made fun of 3 days ago actually said at the end of it, like, protect the Republicans' majority in the House. I've never seen them worry about that before. And I've been telling people, I'm like, next year we can flip the House. If we get people active enough in their respective House districts, we can absolutely flip the chamber. And everyone's like, oh, you're naive. But no, it's true. It's true. I think any seat that is like within a 15-point margin, like we've seen seats in Ohio and Pennsylvania that were a 25-point margin flipping by like 300 votes, 400 votes. Like, there is that movement happening. The question is, are we going to be prepared for it? And we're prepared for it by showing up to meetings like this, by talking to our neighbors, right? I've been giving people like an assignment of 3s, right? First is yourself, like, are you taking care of yourself? Like, you know, take care of your health, eat your vegetables, work out, all that good stuff, right? But then on a community level, are you doing those cookouts? Are you talking to your neighbors outside of politics? Like, just rebuilding those connections, because the internet is genuinely a cesspool, and algorithms were horrible. And then politically, like, essentially, like, adopt a candidate or two, right? The more local, the better, because that is going to be sort of like, I mean, you're going to drive, and I drive myself crazy just watching like national stuff all the time, but you have such a big impact on the local stuff, right? Republicans are able to keep these seats that they should never keep because they knock every door, because they are sort of really like broadening their relationships with their neighbors. If y'all are doing a cookout, invite your state rep or a candidate running against that state rep. If you've got any kind of event going on, just invite us, right? We might not be able to make it, but at least we know. And if we can come, that's more people we meet. That's more hands we can shake. That's like more people who've never heard of us that now hear of us that are more likely to vote all the way down that ballot. So that's where we are. That's kind of like the state of the play and the, like, I guess, to-dos. But I do want to open it up to questions from everybody. So, yes?
You may have already addressed this because I came in late.
You're fine.
I have a trans son.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our concerns is he was not put on hormones or anything early on. He's 19. And one is starting hormones, and 2 is I don't think Georgia is a friendly state, but getting getting chest revision.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case?
As of right now, they have not been able to pass any bills that target adults. So there's at least that, right? Like, I think thankfully, there is still some discomfort with the fact that, like, they can get away with, like, we're protecting children, you know, because children can't advocate for themselves. They really can't get away with the whole, like, adult, like, trying to go after adults, trying to prevent, like, any kind of, like, any kind of gender dysphoria treatment. So to give you an example, one of the bills that hasn't passed is they wanted to make it so that state health insurance policies don't cover gender affirming care for anybody, child or otherwise, right? That's not moving so far. Same thing on you know, any kind of like hormone therapy, that's not moving so far. And we've been told it's not moving so far. Now, next year's an election year, we don't know how crazy they are. We also know that the way that these bills are being passed, because here's the thing about gender affirming care. everybody needs it. Whether you're trans or you're not trans, you still need it. If you go through menopause, you need hormone therapy. For some people, they need breast augmentations because it's creating back problems. Like, gender affirming care is care for everybody. The thing is, they are explicitly writing it in a discriminatory way, which thankfully continues to be struck down due to unconstitutional reasonings. So our hope is that this is like the crux of it, right? The height of it. And as they start to do a lot more infighting, they're going to be way more busy with each other than they are the rest of us.
Yeah, because my son, part of the problem is gender dysphoria and or body dysmorphia, and his breast. He does have large breasts, and he can't bathe.
Yep.
Because he sees his breasts.
Yep. And that's something people don't understand. It's like this is like a mental health and well-being issue, and so to be very clear, as of right now, we have not touched any of that, and we don't have bills in line for any of that. We don't have any kind of like, and so far I haven't heard any of my colleagues even try to go after any kind of gender-affirming treatment for adults.
Okay.
So I think, yeah. Yep, I got you.
A double mastectomy because of mental health reasons, but also for the being male trans.
Sure.
But I think we're going to try to do it for body dysmorphia, for insurance.
I mean, that is between definitely you and the doctor. They will know better, but as of right now, we have not touched anything on that.
So I just wanted to make sure about that.
Yeah, given the fact that next year is the election year and I guess half the Senate is running for something, do you think anything will get done next year?
Yeah, no. I mean, hopefully we get the budget done. And I really mean it. I was worried we wouldn't get the budget done this year. In fact, the day before, we were like, where's the budget? And they're like, we're working on it. So my hope is that, again, this is sort of like, they're so busy with their own elections that they will just do the bare minimum, which is the budget, and not go the complete other direction to try to like make names for themselves. So Nate, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, a question specific to cost of housing, and I think if there's like one issue that is an equalizer for Democrats, Republicans, and those really stubborn independents and moderates in the middle, is the cost of housing. And it was either Michigan or Minnesota, but they passed state law that basically, in Atlanta, like 70% of home sales in 2023, I think, were like BlackRock, right? And so it's these like big equity firms buying up single family homes. If they want to buy apartment buildings, be my guest, but single family homes, stay the hell out of it. And this legislation, rather than having this mass forced sell-off where you'd have your local real estate bubbles collapse, it tiered them over like a 10-year period.
Yeah.
So that way it forced them to divest and sell off their portfolios, which makes it easier for everyone else here to attain housing and their children to attain housing without crashing the local real estate market. We haven't seen that. We saw like a light version of that come from Gabe Sanchez, and it's like Gabe is one of the most progressive members of the House caucus, and that bill was like not even like.
It was. He actually got a hearing. So
yes. But
yeah.
So not
I got you.
Yep. And that's not a wild lefty position. Just housing. The median house sale should be $450,000.
Yep.
Like that's criminal.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? Why don't we follow a model like Minnesota
Totally.
or Michigan?
So Nate is asking about, I think it was Minnesota, where a state had passed legislation to essentially force these hedge funds to sell off their single family homes, but over a period of time so that the housing market doesn't crash, which is great. And the question was like, why aren't we seeing more of that? And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said there are so many housing bills, from Gabe to me to Representative McCollum, Republican, Democrat, socialist, you name it, right? And it's so fascinating because Gabe actually got to give a presentation at a hearing. They gave him a hearing for his bill where a lot of Republicans walked away from it going, wait, that's actually really scary. Like, they did not realize how extensive the problem was and that it is coming into their communities, right? Because the unfortunate reality, because they don't represent Atlanta. So for them, I'm serious, because the way it works is they're like, it's those people, it's the Democrats, which is code word in their case for black people. So they're like, we don't really care, but not realizing that like there's only so much housing these hedge funds can buy in the metro area. Now they're starting to buy it outside the metro area and like taking over a lot more single family homes, which is why they're starting to pay a lot more attention. But I do mean it. Like, that's actually a great question. So the question was like, how do they not know? there's actually a lot we don't know as state reps, right? Like each of us has our own bits of expertise, but we can't know everything everywhere, right? And that's why I've been encouraging people, especially outside of session, to go to their state members' town halls, right? And if they don't have them, demand some kind of meeting, a coffee chat, go meet with their office, a Zoom call, whatever the case may be, and be like, let me tell you about the things that are impacting me and my neighbors. Let me tell you about and then it's our job to go do the research, right? We go to legislative council. We've got a policy research team at the Capitol. It's definitely not enough, but it's at least something that we can then take with us and go, hey, I'm hearing this from several people. I think we need to go fix it.
Well, my question's about national politics.
Please.
How at risk do you think the Ossoff seat is in the Senate?
Take nothing for granted. I think it's very much at risk. And I actually, it's so funny because everybody was like, oh my God, thank God Brian Kemp isn't gonna jump in. My argument is actually, I think somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene would have been a much more formidable candidate. And I know that sounds crazy, but the thing is with her, think about it, she's got massive, massive internet reach, right? She's, whether we like it or not, a very dynamic and attention-grabbing person. And in politics, it's hard to get any kind of attention, right? And Ossoff, to his credit, is a workhorse. He's worked on everything from housing to prison reform to everything you can name it, right? And so, exactly. And the problem, right? And so, but here's the thing, right? This is the attention craziness of this world. And so this is why I'm telling folks, start to adopt a candidate, because what happens is that us as state representatives, right? When we turn voters out, we actually help the top of the ticket. So we were one of the few fully charged campaigns in last year's election. So if you look at Gwinnett County, it's a bunch of red arrows going right and 2 arrows going left blue. It's my district, right? And it's because everyone's trying to find the new form of campaigns, but the reality is it's just knocking on your neighbor's doors and showing up year round. Everyone's trying to find a shortcut. Everyone wants some digital ad targeting, cutting edge technology. None of that's gonna work. And so the best thing that we can do to maintain Ossoff's seat is to keep growing our infrastructure here in the state so that it's him, it's Warnock, anyone who ever wants to win the state has an infrastructure they can tap into. Because Republicans do that right now. Republicans have somebody everywhere they can go to who is an anchor for them in that community that will invite them in and say, come talk to my HOA, come talk to our church, come talk to our local food bank. I've got this guy who owns a restaurant that would love to host you. We need to rebuild that kind of infrastructure. As much as people think they can win through cutting edge technology and ads or even stunts, right? Getting more attention for whatever it is that you're doing, which I still think they should keep giving that man a tiny mic and having him just walk around explaining things. But nothing is gonna beat that direct person to person conversation.
I agree.
So.
Buddy Barton has already started to run this anti-trans
Yep.
TV spot.
Which, by the way, he got a lot of flack for from his own party.
Good.
Yeah.
They were like, "This is so weird. Why are you doing this?"
That's the problem they can talk about.
No, but it's not just that. Introduce yourself to voters. No one knows who you are. Outside of where you represent as a member of Congress, no one knows him. And his red, white, and blue stunt for red, white, and blue land.
Yeah.
That's honestly outside of, and it's sad because everyone who's been represented by Buddy Carter has said his office is great, super representative, shows up everywhere, but no one else in the state knows his name. So he could have easily just been I'm Buddy Carter, let me tell you what I'm doing. And sure, you could be MAGA or whatever, but he just decided to be a bully. And even his own team is just kind of this is weird. So, yeah, yep.
Bunch of questions, but
Go for it.
You said that the House, there's a good chance of flipping. How do you feel about the Senate and the government?
I think the Senate is much more gerrymandered. I still think there's a chance, right? Because a lot of people are going to be leaving, so they lose their incumbency advantage in those districts. For example, one of them is Brian Strickland, who just announced for Attorney General. His district has been going blue, so we need someone willing to do the work of running for office and foregoing income and that stress. So yeah. And then in terms of the governor, I think it's very flippable. I think that, between, not Brian Kemp not returning and who we expect, I want to be clear, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not running for Senate. She might be running for governor. I'm actually being, everyone's always oh, we got rid of her. But I'm so, I know, right? The groans, great, phenomenal. But like, hear me out for a second. Like, I actually don't think people take, it's kind of like how we didn't take Trump seriously. People don't take Marjorie Taylor Greene seriously. So I will listen to Politically Georgia when I'm running, because it's the only thing that'll piss me off enough to like keep going. And every once in a while, they will like interview Marjorie Taylor Greene in particular. And the reason I'm saying this is that if you actually listen to her, not during a committee hearing, not when she's making a fool of herself, but when she's sitting down for a real interview, she is like very persuasive and sounds like a very serious person. And I think that is why it's so important that you don't take any of your opposition for granted. I don't care if it's Burt Jones. I don't care if it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't care if it's apparently it might be some football coach from Tennessee. Why? Like, that alone is disqualifying, respectfully, but like, so there's that. Like, they're gonna try to throw everything at the wall and see what comes out of their primary. And I want to be clear, we need to be ready, and the only way to be ready, yes, we need the right person, but we need to make sure that our counties, our House districts, have infrastructure so that when that governor, I'm going to use Josh because he's running for lieutenant governor, like when that lieutenant governor comes to your area, he's got like 8 people he can reach out to be like, set up events for me, right? Invite me to your neighborhood, invite me to your local chapter, invite me to this, invite me to that. That is the thing. And I know you're like, my neighbor kind of pisses me off a little bit. I get it. But like, cookouts are also a good time to just hang out, okay? You know, any school events, anything with like grandkids, kids, you name it, that's gonna go a really long way.
I have a question. This is kind of national. Traveling. So, for instance, I was at Marjorie Taylor Greene's town hall protesting. Where she was being kept before the town hall, there was a guy who was taking pictures of the protesters. So maybe I'm being a little paranoid. She is the chair of the Homeland Security Committee. So I have the top Homeland Security clearance for traveling, along with TSA clearance. So my concern is A, traveling internationally, not being able to come back in because they have my picture from the protest, and B, traveling just in America, my picture coming up on the TSA thing, as because Marjorie Taylor Greene has access to my picture of putting a label on my TSA pre-check.
Yeah.
And I know I'm being a little paranoid.
No, you're not.
But
So like, to be clear, like, I want to make a joke that's like welcome to traveling while Muslim. I'm glad everyone gets the experience now. So it's not paranoid. To be very clear, what we've been telling people generally about travel is that if you're a United States citizen, the United States government is required to let you re-enter the country. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, how much you get harassed in the process, there's no guarantee one way or the other. The thing we always tell people is that you are required to answer a couple of questions, which is like, where did you travel and are you bringing anything with you? Anything outside of that, like, that you have to report, right, like for duty and stuff, and fees. But anything outside of that, that is way outside their purview of, like, I don't know if y'all saw, but this like left-wing podcaster Hassan got detained, and so he was like sharing like everything he talked about, and I was like, that is the worst thing you can do. You shut up, you answer those 2 questions, and you call it a day. And if they keep asking you questions, be like, I'm not required to answer that for re-entry. I'm not required to answer that for re-entry. Make sure you've got a passcode on your phone, not Face ID. Preferably wipe your phones. They can take those from you. The problem is that under the Patriot Act, after like all of the big scares about Muslims in the country, there is a 100-mile radius along the border of the United States. So that includes all of Florida, many parts of, like, anything along the coast, anything along the borders, and, you know, all the way, essentially all around the border of our country. Those security and privacy laws apply differently there now. So that's why we've been telling people, like, if you can travel the burner, don't take your laptop, don't take any of your other stuff. Upon re-entry, they're required to let you back in. Now, if you are a green card holder or a visa holder, green card holder is kind of the same thing. They're required to let you back in, but just always make sure to talk to a lawyer before you travel now. So.
Like, because when I came before that whole thing, when I came back in the country, I had I forgot what pass it is, but when I came back in, it took my face picture.
Yeah, global re-entry.
And the guard just waved me on
Yep.
through.
Yeah.
Didn't ask me any questions. It was the fastest, 20 minutes.
Yep. So to be clear, like, yeah, we're not, that is not there's no guarantee that anything is going to happen one way or the other. It's just that is how you're prepared, but you are required to be allowed back in. Yeah.
Where are Democrats on the Republicans have been rather engaged to do away with the income tax,
Mm-hmm.
state income tax, and go to a user sales tax.
Yep.
That's regressive
Mm-hmm.
versus the income tax, which is progressive. How successful are we going to be pushing back on that?
We voted no on the most recent income tax change that they tried to do. That's the problem, right? That's why we want to flip the House next year, because we want to make sure that that kind of stuff doesn't happen. I will say there is something limiting Republicans right now, which is that we're required to have a balanced budget. So if they shove through an income tax, and they get rid of an income tax, good luck to them passing a budget. It's just not possible. Even if they got rid of every single corporate tax giveaway, there would still, I'm serious, there would still be a $4 billion deficit. Even if they got rid of everything that they have given to their friends, there's no way for them, they physically cannot balance this budget. So, of course they do. They love sales tax. They love everything that's regressive and terrible. But what I'm saying is that, for example, Gooch just announced that as part of his run for lieutenant governor, that he is committed to getting rid of the income tax, right? Chairman Tillery, who I think wants to run for lieutenant governor as well, has said that he wants to look into it and study it carefully. Again, could they be crazy enough and shove it through? Yeah. The problem is, I'm sorry, I can't say no, because here's the thing. I could, up until this session, tell you with certainty that the speaker would never let something this stupid happen. I'm serious. This year I can't do that. Their right flank is so out of control that, and the thing is, I've actually said this to them directly, to my colleagues that are more reasonable. The more you give them, the worse it gets. It will never stop. And at some point, you've got to say no. You got to let out some of that tension. I get that. But at some point, you've also got to say no is no. So I wish I could definitively tell you that they would not be that stupid to wreck the economy. There's two things that worry me, right? Is that their more reasonable people are very weak in the party right now. And two, that there is a good chance we flip the House and the governor's mansion next year. So there's no incentive for them to not essentially hand us over a complete disaster. Because then they could say, you let Democrats take over, and so now everything sucks. So, yep.
First of all, to this lady's point, in case she needs to know, because I had booked a cruise to Central America starting in Panama, there is a membership that you can join called Global Rescue. And so if you get caught somewhere and you can't get back, then these people can help you get back. Also, shame on Buddy Carter for his advertisement that clearly displays somebody's license plate. I don't know whose it is, but sorry for them that that's on there. I'm late to the party.
Hi.
I myself have never declared a party. I've always voted for whoever I felt would do the best job. I don't mind telling you I'm terrified about what's happening in our country right now, which is why I'm involved. So on a local level, we are at a disadvantage. I'm very impactful, I won't say impactful, but very in with what's happening in upstate South Carolina and also in Northwest Florida because of relatives that I have there. I'm going on the 26th of June to a tri-county meeting that they're having in upstate South Carolina. And I'm wondering, there's strength in numbers. I agree that, you can affect the greatest change on the lowest possible level, which is local. But strength in numbers, I really know nothing about the North Fulton Democrats, but I'm really vested in getting this person in office. Is there anything projected to happen along those lines for us?
Yep. Thank you for that question. That's a great question. I'll also let Nate talk about this because he's the chair here. I will tell you, we have a new chair. So the question was about is there anything to kind of go both on a county level, but then also partner up with other counties? I know for a fact that Charlie Bailey, who's the new chair of the DPG, has, at least he's told me that's something he wants to talk about is deepen relationships with the counties so that way they can also facilitate inter-county conversations. So when people are in fact essentially working together. So I grew up in Forsyth County, actually. I graduated from the same high school as Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's not worry about that. Yeah, so I know what it's like. Back when I was in high school, Obama got 12% of the vote, right? This time around, Biden got 30. And every time we do that, there's to your point, strength in numbers, right? There's absolutely nothing stopping any of you from going to different county meetings if you've got the time. There is nothing stopping any of you from like reaching out to your neighbors and being like, I want to, you know, do those conversations. I want to set up a Signal chat. I want to have like a place where we consolidate all of our events and share them out to people. That is going to be happening, and I'll defer to Nate to talk more if there's anything in the works right now.
I'm trying
For
to
Cherokee.
think about how to organize my thoughts here, but there's so much going on at the county level and at the state level that matters, and a lot of this is longer plays, a lot of this is shorter plays for us building political power so we can break the Republican trifecta at the federal level, which a lot of these questions have been federal related, but I would argue the more important level is the state level right now for a lot of different reasons, and I'll try to touch on those. So like longer plays that we are working on, the Democratic Party of Georgia needed new leadership. Nikema Williams does a fantastic job as a congresswoman, but being a congresswoman is a full-time job. Being a party chair of a battleground state is a full-time job, and Georgia was not getting the attention. And so we were really active behind the scenes pushing for that transition, and we got that across the finish line. In the midst of that, anyone that had a cell phone that was in leadership in the state party was getting calls from me on a freaking weekly basis saying, make Vote Builder free for your candidates. The reason for that is, and to your point, you don't need all the flashy data, but you do need to know who to contact for phone banking, for postcard parties, for knocking on doors. And it is criminal to me that the state party raised prices on Vote Builder last year, fundraising off of candidates instead of doing fundraising themselves. And Democrats are real good at asking for money, but show what you're doing to invest in local Democrats. And so that got built into the pledge for the incoming state chairs, and there's 4 like primary planks, and that was the plank that I said that needs to be in there. And so we got a heads up a couple weeks ago that the state party was now making Vote Builder free for all local and state candidates. Good. I can't tell you guys how important that is, because the Susie Greenbergs of the world and the Elena Parents of the world, these are state legislators, they've got tons of money to throw into elections. But when you're running in House District 23, it's tough to fundraise $5,000. We shouldn't be charging you $250 for data. You already have to pay a qualifying fee. That's enough. So let's make it as easy as possible for people to run. And so that's what we're doing at the state level, things that Cherokee has been really, really active in impacting. And that has regional implications, not just Cherokee Democrats implications. That's supporting Democrats in rural parts of the state, all corners of the state. For regional organizing, we work really closely across our congressional district with Bartow, with Cobb. Gordon's now thrown into the mix, but we don't really have a relationship because of redistricting, and the map changed 3 times in 2 years because of state politics. But I want to stress the point of breaking the Republican trifecta in Georgia. So there are 11 seats to flip the state house. 5 of those run through Cherokee County, half of them. That's HD 44, which we're going to win with Danielle Bell. That's HD 46, that's HD 20, 21, and 22. 23 is a longer play. And then we've got 11 and 14 too, but that's a way longer play. But we've got 5 seats that are in that 15-point margin that we can break, that we can win this year. And so the sky can be falling with the federal government, but North Carolina is not concerned, because North Carolina, they just flipped every constitutional office in North Carolina. They've got a firewall at the state level that we don't have. So all these bad bills that Ruwa's talking about, North Carolina can veto them all. And North Carolina is in charge of implementation of those laws.
And not only that, if we have the governor's mansion and a Republican decides to be extra spicy, the governor can just line item veto the project they asked for.
Right.
Right?
Smackdown. And so we've got to win the local stuff. And so it's not as sexy as Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweets, but the state house races are so important, and that's what we got to be focused on.
Yeah, and I cannot, I really do mean this, because I remember, it was 2 weeks before Sine Die, 2 weeks before the last day of session, and I went up to our leadership and I said, I know we're just trying to survive until the last day, but I need to tell you something, and I feel like I'm proselytizing, and I don't proselytize, but I need you to hear me. And I said, there is a seat in Ohio that was plus 28 Republican that ended up plus 3 Republican, and a seat in Pennsylvania that was plus 25 Republican that flipped by 400 votes. And I need, after session, for everyone to take a break, but then afterwards, I want us to take it as seriously that we can flip the House next cycle. Not the cycle after that, not the cycle after that one. I'm talking about the next one. There's a few things that are happening in our favor. People are dropping out to go run for statewide offices. We've got people who are just like distracted with all the Trump stuff. I mean, there's just so much going on, and Republicans are seeing the writing on the wall. Yeah, trans issues poll great for them, but guess what? People are getting really sick and tired of it because, hey, all right, you got to pass everything you wanted, and my bills are still high, and everything is still terrible. Like, just to give you an example with the Public Service Commission stuff, they just announced a rate hike freeze for 3 years. And the Georgia Power lobbyist calls me up, like, I just want to give you this great news. She texted me because I was in another meeting, but like I remember just staring at that text message and then seeing that the governor did a press conference with Tim Echols, who was the current chair of the PSC, the same guy who's approved every rate hike Georgia Power has asked for, and the same guy who's gotten us to where we are today. We don't get to pick who gives us power because Georgia Power has a legalized monopoly. But they have the audacity to be like, give us a pat on the back for freezing your rates for the next 3 years. The thing is, there's no guarantee, and there's a ton of exceptions written into the bill. And on top of that, there is no like real conversation happening around data centers. And full disclosure for this team, it is the one vote I regret, was voting. So we had a vote on data center tax breaks. We were gonna, they had them for 5 years. Yeah, they had them for 5 years. We were gonna reduce it down and just end them. And a lot of people came to us saying like, these are job creators in my county. Some of them are our districts, some of them are like Democrats. We had unions come up to us that were like, we really, really need these jobs. But per usual, they were being lied to about how many jobs those were. They don't, correct. And not only that, this was like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, like right when I first got there, before everyone started talking about like the energy requirements and AI and all of that kind of stuff. And I will never forget this, the bill still passed anyway. So we're thinking, okay, like mistake, but passing the House, passing the Senate. Do you know who vetoed that bill? The governor. And then has the audacity to come and tell us, like, give us a pat on the back because we are freezing your rates. That is like, that to me is the absolute chaos and madness of, like, it's not even just politics, it's just the fact that everyone is so busy. The people who care the most about their rate hikes aren't the ones watching these press conferences. They're not the ones watching all these votes and tracking these policies. And so like, part of all of this is like, it's great to come together like us, you know, people that are like-minded, but to your point, like now is the time to talk about those very basic things, right? Not just from a partisan perspective, but from a, we're all getting screwed over and we have people that don't want to screw us over. Why are we not helping them? Why are we not talking to them? Because I'll be honest with you, and I shared this earlier this week, I feel like I'm in a hamster wheel. And the faster I run, the more I don't get anywhere. And part of it is that it's impossible to reach people. Like I'm one of the few in my colleagues that's always doing like Instagram videos and TikTok videos, and like I now do them on my runs. Like I'm like trying everything to like get out there and like actually tell people like here's what's going on. But even then, the people who are seeing it are the people who already agree. So now the question is, how do we start to get this? And I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I'm now talking like my neighbor's ears off, my family's ears off. Like anytime I get an opportunity to talk to people I don't normally talk to, talking to them about that kind of stuff. But to me, and again, Fortune 500 companies are dealing with this. They can't get their products in front of consumers because the internet is garbage right now. So like, these are the moments this is where we, I think, thrive as Democrats, is we are in our communities. We talk to the most amount of people. Like, this is the moment for us to thrive. So.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What is the activity of ICE in Georgia? I know they've done some horrible things in other states, and I want to know what they're doing here. Are you in touch with any of that?
Yep, all of it. So actually the governor just bragged about, who here has heard of 287G? So 287G are contracts that the federal government enters into with local law enforcement for them to essentially assist in ICE enforcement policies and ICE enforcement activities. There are...
Are they wearing masks? Are the little guys that wear masks and hide their faces?
No, so it's actually your local law enforcement. Yeah. So that's the problem. So a lot of counties, particularly the blue ones, said, we don't want to do this. From a very like selfish perspective, we're not getting federal dollars to do federal work, right? Yeah. Two, to your point about wearing masks, no, these are local law enforcement that you would personally know, which means that you no longer, for these immigrant communities, they would no longer trust local police to actually help them. So then it allows crime to fester. The governor literally yesterday was bragging about how Georgia has one of the largest enforcements of 287G contracts. And not only that, after the Lake and Riley Act, and I will never forget that week, the Lake and Riley murder happened, and they immediately shoved through House Bill 1105, which is the one that mandates that local law enforcement that they detain people for 48 hours suspected of being undocumented. So if you don't have your papers on you, technically speaking, your local law enforcement could just hold you for up to 48 hours until they can make sure that you are actually a citizen. That activity is happening here. Now, there's a few things at play that at least give me a little bit of hope. One, all of the people that are being detained, like the student up in Dalton, they've been released, and now their cases are being adjudicated. I don't know if y'all saw, but Kilmar Garcia and some of these other high-profile folks are being returned. Yes, the Trump administration is still trying to throw the book at them. My hope is that they can at least get those dismissed because of malicious prosecution, essentially. There's headlines to support this. I think they should at least try it. For us as legislators, one thing we've been asking for from local organizations that do immigration work is to train us and other people on how to interrupt ICE raids. Is specifically being able to talk about someone's rights, right? They don't have a judicial warrant, you don't have to open the door, that kind of thing. So it's happening, especially in counties like mine and in Cobb County as well. And it's horrible because they keep saying we're going after the criminals, but Stephen Miller is a racist. Right? And so he doesn't care about going after criminals. He wants to make America white again, right? He's very open about this. They want to create an office, the party that hates government bureaucracy wants to create an office that incentivizes immigrants to leave. So, yeah.
Felicia and I have been canvassing for a PSC candidate, Daniel Blackman.
Yep.
And every door that we went to, the people were shocked that there was an election.
Thank you.
They did not know anything about the election. And luckily it was a strong Democrat turf, okay? So they all promised to go out and vote. But it frustrates me, and I wonder if you have any ideas on this, because I'm on social media, and I've seen a lot about the election on social media. I watch the local news, and at least once a week they have a big article about the PSC and the candidates that are running and what's going on and everything. I listen to NPR, and the two of the different NPR local stations, they have a lot about the PSC collection. Why do our other Democrats not even know that there's an election? How can we get them more informed? I'm just very frustrated.
That's the hamster wheel I was talking about.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I'm serious, right? As we continue to live in this algorithm social media world, right? The algorithm social media world is about tailoring your feed to the things that you like and care about, right? Which means that somebody could literally be your next door neighbor and never see the same post that you see, which is absurd. There is no there's nothing in these algorithms that's about community care, right? Or about just some sort of shared reality. We currently, unless you physically leave your house and talk to your neighbors and all of that, you literally live in individual realities created by the screens on your phone. Even the shows that you're watching, even the commercials that you get now. You and I might be listening to the same podcast and we're getting two different commercials, depending on how the podcast is set up. It is just insanity. And this is, I know it sounds really old-fashioned of unplug and do whatever, but I even tell this to younger kids of I know you keep hearing get off your phones and get off your screens and all of that kind of stuff, but to me it's I don't want to live in a world where I am working so that a robot can function. You know what I mean? Because that's what's happening right now. And I'm saying this to myself, it's a frustration that I have because these things are addictive, right? My life is on here. I've got my doctor's information and apps to access a bunch of different things. And so your frustration is very valid. I do want to tell you though that right now Democrats are outvoting Republicans almost 2-1, right? So it's annoying and it's frustrating and it makes you feel like you're in a hamster wheel, but cannot stress enough that every door that you have knocked has contributed to that, and it's tedious and it's annoying, but this is also why I say you should have a group of people who aren't politically active that you'll just text every once in a while, hey, don't forget this. My neighbors now, they rely on me, and my favorite story is that my city council member won his runoff by 4 votes, okay? This was right after my grandfather had died, and I had gone to Publix because I wanted like some junk food, and because I was really sad, and yeah, and I'm like driving, and I see like vote here at City Hall, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? I was like, oh my God, there's a runoff. So I text my husband and our 2 neighbors, and I'm like, yo, do you guys want to like go vote and go get dinner? And the 4 of us voted, and he won by 4 votes, right? Like, no, like I'm dead serious, but like. And I'm like in a haze, right? Like I don't even know what's going on, but it's like I'm like a very well-trained rat right now when it comes to voting. But that's the thing about voting is that as you help people make it a habit, they do become more in tune with like there's an election coming up. The more that they vote, especially if they're super Democrats, they end up on our list, so then they hear more from us. So like it's sort of like one of those like it's like a steep climb, but then the more you do it, as it becomes more of a habit, the climb is actually a lot smoother, and then suddenly it flattens out. So the hamster wheel sucks, and I know. Part of this also is that local news is very defunded, right? Like local news doesn't have, like, back in the day, every state house member would have a reporter just following them around, like figuring out what they're doing. Maybe 2 of them, depending on like, the size of the district and how close the race is. But now, we can get away with so much. Like the kinds of things I say, I'm like, this would be headline news every day. Like, just, because I don't care. I'm just like tired of everything. But even news organizations are being defunded in such a way that's prioritizing a lot of the slop and so much less of the like informative content. And being an American is exhausting. The things that we have to worry about in other countries, people don't have to do. Like just being a consumer, right? You're now always having to read every ingredient and finding out this plastic is in this or this plastic is in that. In other countries, they don't have to deal with that. When it comes to healthcare, when it comes to like so many things that are people and consumer, even consumer-centric, like you want to be like very capitalistic about it, consumers are also protected in other countries in a way we're not, right? Democracy is so much harder. And so, but the thing is, every time we like give up, it gets harder to even get somewhere in the future. So I'm just trying to get folks to be like, find whatever your baseline, like easy pace is, because that's the thing that you can keep doing the longest. So, yeah.
I'm concerned about the Project 2025.
Yep.
How is that going to affect Georgia?
And everyone.
And is there any way that a county could get a copy and everybody just take one part of it, dissect it, and talk about it?
Yep. Yeah, it's online.
Because I hear people talking about it, but I don't see the whole big picture.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, those of us who are very, like really, I know, like really into this stuff. So I've seen book clubs where they've done that, where they will literally just like download it, and then each person takes a section, and they kind of do like mini presentations to each other to talk about what it is. Essentially, Project 2025 is like all of the different right-wing policies literally put into one manual. And as of
will we be able to vote in 28 is what I'm concerned about.
So here's the thing, and I will tell you this. I saw a viral video that had over 2 million likes and millions of views about how the United States government is currently a dictatorship. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that is beyond irresponsible. Because what you're doing is you're fear-mongering people in a way that isn't based in reality, right? There is no way in a dictatorship that a sitting senator could have gone to El Salvador and walked to go talk to a resident who was being kept essentially in a counterterrorism facility and been able to make it out of El Salvador in one piece, right? Because the United States president could have just easily told, like, the president of El Salvador, like, yeah, get rid of this guy, right? Like, knock him out. There is no way that in a dictatorship, members of Congress could openly talk about know your rights against ICE. They might be targeted, they might be a lot of boisterous, like, we're gonna go after them, whatever, but there's no way they'd still be walking around and tweeting. So it's very, very important to understand that this is a dangerous moment in time. They are doing bad things. Our information, especially at the IRS and census and other places, is being compromised. Those are very important to talk about. Those are dangerous, those are bad. We're still not in a dictatorship because we can still fight about it. We can still argue about it. We can still push on it. But to your question about 2028, my worry is that so many people are going to be talking about not having a fair election that they're going to choose to just tune out and be like, I'm going to mind my business and focus on my life, and that's it. We run 50 different elections in 50 different states plus all the territories. Ironically enough, this is actually one of the reasons that I went from like supporting some kind of like federalized, like standardized process for voting to not doing that at all. Because that is actually a form of protection for our entire country, which means that even in states that are Republican-led, y'all remember this from 2020, right? Like, we have processes in place that could and can prevent that. And it doesn't just require Raffensperger, it doesn't just require Kemp, it doesn't require just individual people. It also requires like audits, and the stuff that they're asking for is actually the stuff that makes it harder for them to cheat anyway. Not to mention how many blue states are blue states, right? And so, to me, there's always a fine line between like, here's the reality and the sober understanding of the moment, but you never want to go too far the other way that you inadvertently are convincing people there's no hope. So, yep.
This is, I think, not so much a question, but like a challenge to take to your colleagues. I think like you, Sam Park, Jasmine Clark, Josh McLaurin, like there's a group of you that are fantastic, and you guys are out in the community all the time, and I can't say that's the same for the majority of your colleagues. And so when we talk about this hamster wheel and how do we break through like the algorithm and the noise, it's this. And so like Democrats are really keen on talking about strong fundraising quarters, and we got to cut that shit out because nobody wants to hear about how much money you guys are raking in.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also,
Yes.
like, we know that you guys are at the HRC galas speaking, and we know that you're like all these galas and events. That's not where you need to be. You need to be in these kind of rooms with like real people outside the Atlanta bubble, and for these peripheral counties, or these exurban counties that Cherokee is. We don't have Democratic electeds, so you guys have got to invest in us, and like the infrastructure's there, the county chairs are there. We need to hear from legislators that we just don't have the fortune of having. The recommendation that I would give for your colleagues, specific to like how do we reach these people in the middle, you guys need to be in the churches. You guys need to be in talking to like Chamber of Commerce's, the business community, labor unions, and you guys got to be reaching out to these groups and like coming into the community, and not just talking to Democratic groups, because that's why we've got these shrinking margins across the state. We lost ground in 144 counties on 159.
Yep.
It's because Democrats aren't investing across the state. And so like we're doing the infrastructural piece, but like you guys are the champions that we rally behind. We need you guys meeting us where we're at, not just at the flashy Democratic events. So like please take that back to your colleagues. Because this doesn't fall on you, but you're feeling like you're on this hamster wheel because you're shouldering the weight of an entire caucus, and that's deeply unfair.
Yeah, I mean, so I really do mean it. I think we should have healthy primaries every term, every cycle. And I'm saying this about myself too. I think it's a great way to kind of force all of us to step out of our comfort zones and talk to people all the time. Here is the challenging piece of this, and I mean it. Unless you're independently wealthy or retired, which a lot of Republicans are, all of us have some sort of outside employment, right? Outside of session, we're at our jobs. Now, this is a Saturday. I'm here, right? There's a couple of things. One, I didn't know about Cherokee Dem meetings, so I got an invite. We figured out a date that works. I came. I think you would be really surprised at how likely they are to show up if they just get the invite in their inboxes. Like, to me, like the best, I always, trust me, I'm always being like, you need to go visit your next door neighbors. Like, I've adopted Forsyth County because I grew up there. But you would be surprised how often that if like each region, for example, just like those counties reached out to all the Democrats in that region, how many of them are going to show up? It actually is surprising. Like, to my colleagues' credit, they're not necessarily proactive about it because they might not know the community. So I feel this way. I feel like I'm intruding if I just walk in as a state rep to a place that I have, frankly, no business being, unless, that's why I said, like, if y'all reconnect to your churches, your community centers, et cetera, when you invite us, we have an invitation. You become our anchor. And so, yeah, if you're inviting people and they're not coming, come tattle, and I'll go yell at them. But also, like, this is actually a great opportunity, going back to what you said about, like counties working together, of, like, figuring out, okay, here's this region of Georgia. Okay, which, do we have any Democrats here? Who are they? Okay, who's the closest outside of us? Making a list of those, and every time you have something, just inviting them.
The third point, I mentioned civic. I did mention civic, but like the Rotary,
Yep.
the Lions Club, that's like the third prong here. It's religious, business, and civic communities. We've got to do a better job.
Please,
It
I'd love
costs
to.
money to be a member of those.
I know, which is why we need people to either invite us, or if, like, if you're like, hey, this local Rotary chapter is everywhere, we can email them on your behalf. So, especially if they invite any of the local Republicans. So, yeah.
This is true confessions time.
Oh, okay.
I'm a lifelong Democrat. This is the first meeting of the Cherokee Dems that I've been to.
Welcome.
I live in Cherokee County now. I'm a former CBC employee. I'm mad as hell. Listening to all this really energizes me, but also overwhelms me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something. I have an interesting skill set. I don't really know. Having come today, it's push me, pull me. I'm like, do I really want to get involved? Yeah, you really need to get involved. You know, it's like the devil and the angel going, So, you know, just speaking individually, I want to make a contribution. I feel that things have gotten so out of control, totally out of control. But I don't know what little, you know, what round hole does my peg go in? I don't know what to do.
I mean, look, that, so let me tell you, the way I got involved in politics was when Michelle Nunn and Jason Carter ran for Senate and governor. Their like college outreach person showed up to my campus and was like, do you guys want to be politically involved? And we're like, we don't know what that even means. So we went down to headquarters and learned about what canvassing and door knocking was, right? And I will tell you, I fell in love from the first door knock. I was like, we are going to flip the state a door at a time. And this was 2014. Everyone was like, oh, you're so cute. Like, bless your heart. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go do that. And you guys just sit in your own little bubble. But it really is that way, right? Like, you have access to a group of people that none of us know. Your friends, your family, your neighbors, whatever the case may be. You just talking to them about your experience, like sharing like the behind the scenes with them and demystifying so much of government is in and of itself organizing work, right? Like, you are slowly getting them out of their bubbles. If nothing else, their phones can probably overhear you and it changes their algorithm a little bit. So, you know, like that kind of thing. But figure out what it is that you want to do. Do you want to spend time phone banking, right? Do you want to spend time knocking doors? Do you want to, y'all, I know y'all love postcards, but please, for the love of God, do something in addition to the postcards. Like, I say this with so much deep love and respect, but like we need, like postcards are important, but I need you to like, for every postcarding shift you do, you got to do like one phone banking or canvassing shift. In addition to that, like, you know, you've got like I said, it is tedious work, right? It is the kind of work that you just have to do all the time, but also find hobbies. Like, whatever hobby you're into. Like, I have recently gotten to running because I can't sit still and I can't meditate. Like, it's a problem. So this is the closest thing I can get to like getting out some of that nervous energy. And one thing I'm challenging myself to do is to join a run club by the end of summer. Like, find a run club, whether that's my city one or some of the more local ones or like whatever, to go running with people. Because even though running is my alone time, I can do one run a week where I'm with other people, right? It's a place that's not political, has nothing to do with any of it. A book club, right? Figure out what your library is doing. If your library is doing like a fun little activity thing, and you're really into that activity, go to that. It really can start that basic. It doesn't have to be, you have to change your county tomorrow. It is, I have access to a group of people that nobody in this room does, and I'm gonna get them working. So, does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
So we're gonna go there and then there, I got you.
You mentioned phone banking. Okay, let's say I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Talk to Nate.
What I'm saying though is you've mentioned some things.
Yep.
Yes.
We train you. Anytime you go to any of these shifts, basically if you go on Mobilize, Mobilize is actually a really great place to go because you can then decide based on your location. Usually with phone banking, it's on Zoom. You can do it from the comfort of your home. And you can find like actual like shifts that you can sign up for and all of that just on Mobilize alone.
And people go in groups of 2 or 3. Like there'll be a driver and then the 2 canvassers, or there'll be 2 canvassers. You get paired with somebody, and then we're only going to Democrats' doors. So
Good to know.
yeah, and then, you know,
I'm over here like, oh, someone said they don't like me. I'm gonna go to their house and knock their door, and I've done that. But anyways, but yes, go ahead.
It's really nice. And then the times when like the Democrat at that, you know, residence is away at college, and the dad is a Republican. They don't want. It's always fun. They're always, you know, at worst, you know, they're a little gruff. So it's always been very, very nice. And just, you know, seeing the neighborhoods and being out and like getting some fresh air rather than otherwise I'm at my desk. It's really, it's good. And then, you know, we're making friends, and it's the best thing I've done in a long time.
The easiest thing you can do, and this goes to both of you guys that maybe you're just now dipping your toes into like getting involved, sign up for the newsletter. It goes out once a month. It's not getting spammy, and then we post any volunteer opportunities. And because we're in the middle of an election cycle, you're going to see Get Out the Vote or GOTV. And so that's where phone banking, canvassing, postcards, and we like to tease that postcards are like the gateway drug to activism. Where, like, you come to a
They are.
party, and you're like, this is kind of fun.
That's
But,
what I'm
like,
saying, gotta
I'm
attach
gonna
it to
knock on
another
doors, I'm
shift.
at a table in Woodstock on Friday night. It's that first step into the waters. But the newsletters can be the best place to find out what's going on, and that's protests. That's the entire suite of activism. The newsletter is going to be your gateway to like finding out what's going on. But these phone banks you can do virtually, just sitting at home. We give you a script. We give you a list of numbers to call. It is so easy. The first like initial session that you like volunteer for, it's like, oh, am I going to like this? I'm a little nervous. And you're gonna get 2 calls under your belt, and you're like, oh, this is so easy.
Oh, you can sign up to volunteer on the website, CherokeeDemocrats.com.
Yeah, I love you guys' website. It's so nice.
And then you get a choice of things you're interested
Yeah.
in.
But I like, yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I live in an over 55 community of 75 homes.
Yep.
And, you start identifying in the neighborhood, like, he's one of us. Oh, she's one of us.
Yeah.
So, even one time for the horrible debate, I had a group of people come in, kind of root by none, and they still talk about doing that.
Yeah.
So, even what you said today, like, I make a group, I send out, don't forget the election that's coming up, so we need to, here's the strongest candidate from our point of view, and just, that would be easy.
Mm-hmm.
So during my election cycles, the past 2 that I've done is, because people are more likely to donate to a candidate when they're running instead of when they're not, even though we don't get staff. That's the only way I can keep staff. But we actually would get ice cream trucks like once a quarter when it's nice out, right? And I would do them. I would do one in my neighborhood, and I would do one in a local park. And it's just ice cream, right? Like we would be like, we'll pay for the first 75 people to show up, and their ticket is basically my like pamphlet. You know what I mean? Like my little like thing that we give to people. And we don't necessarily talk politics, just like, hey, your kids are out and you want ice cream. And it was so cute. Oh my God, I'll never forget. My neighbor's daughter started crying because she wanted a yard sign. And I didn't know that's, because like she's crying. She's like, it's not fair, she's right there. And I'm like, what's going on? And her dad's like, she wants a yard sign. I'm like, we'll take a yard sign. He's like, I can take a yard sign? I'm like, yeah. He's like, but there's so many up in the neighborhood. I'm like, I don't care, your kid wants a yard sign, take a yard sign. But like, that's what I mean. We showed up for ice cream, we were hanging out. We did, in the fall, we did movie nights. So like, we literally just like set up a projector in my neighbor's driveway, and then anyone who canvassed for us that day is welcome. Anyone's welcome, just generally. But it was so cool because then you see like the little kids would show up, and their parents who are tired, like their kids are somewhere safe, they can take a break for a couple hours, and they come over and we'd start talking like, oh, why are you doing this? And it's like, I'm actually running for office, and I've been running for office for like 3 years now. And like those kinds of, I promise you, those kinds of like social relationships where you're giving people a place to be around other people in an increasingly isolated society goes, oh my God, so much further. So. And then,
I just want to emphasize that even more, because when I moved into a 55-plus community too, I thought there were 6 households that were Democrats. And so now we have 22 households that I know are Democrats and 40 people that vote. And so I'm able to, I have all their email addresses and everything else, and every time I get something, I send it out to them. We've had a meet the candidate night. But we started out with 6 people that we, or 12 people that I knew were Democrats, and now I have 44 that I know, 132 home. Things. So.
And look, a lot of y'all in this room can be stealth Republicans and like go talk to people and steal some of their people. Like that's, once you get like on the what is it, like super experience level, that's also, a way to do that. But
to that point, I've been secretly or privately, not secretly, but privately messaging my friends who are keyboard warriors that have a lot to say but won't come out publicly to do this, to, hey, there's this great group that you need to get involved with. So I'm trying to do that. To this lady's point about Project 2025, there is a website called, and it's all spelled out, democracyforward.org, that has every section of Project 2025 broken down.
So it's by topics, and you can look at each of the district sections.
And they're the ones suing, by the way, to stop Project 2025, so they're great.
It's Democracy Forward. It's all written.
democracyforward.org.
And also, I'm sure a lot of people, like I said, I'm late to this party, but a lot of people probably already know about the website called 5calls.org. So the digit 5 and then the word calls.org, where you can contact your congressman and let them know how you feel about the different things.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really great point too, is that there are technically 5 people you should call, right? Your 2 state senators, your House member, your state House member, and your state Senate member. And you can even make it weekly. Like email us weekly, call us weekly, whatever the case may be. And you can just be like, here's what I'm worried about this week. Or, hey, I called you last week about this. Here's what I'm like, and in addition, let's add that on there. Because for us, it really also goes to show what is breaking through to people enough to make the time to make the phone calls. Because we were at a town hall on Tuesday, and somebody said, what's the point? Like, I make these phone calls, I send these emails, I might get back a form letter, and I want to be clear, like, I am so sorry. We've got 4,000 emails, and I actively try to get through them before the next session. Turns out most people don't, because there's so many, and we don't get staff. But I want to tell you that we do read them, right? We read every email that we get, especially about bills. And even if we don't respond to you, here's what happens. If an advocacy group comes in and says, you should support this bill or oppose this bill or whatever it is, I'll take their information, I'll weigh it, and I'll go like, thank you so much. But if an advocacy organization comes in and says, you really need to support this, and I've got 100 emails telling me the same, or like phone calls telling me the same, that immediately is like, I'm on it, let's go, right? I'm gonna carry it, I'm gonna work on it. It matters to my constituents, it matters to the people I represent, they made the time to call. Like, it's almost like you are, because there are people meeting with us about issues all the time, you're basically making them like, instead of like a little tiny person trying to fight, they're like a big giant that's like gonna be punching and actually getting stuff done. And the more people that call on behalf of an issue, the better. And yes, that includes being able to fight back on lobbyists, on special interests, on corporate interests, on all of that, because they are in our halls all the time. Like, I tell people all the time, the best thing you can do during session is to show up if you can. If you've got the time, please come down to session, come annoy the heck out of us, adopt a committee where it's the one that you watch all the time and you go testify and you talk to people and whatever, like, because the thing is, lobbyists sometimes are there longer than we are. And they have more relationships and more connections than we do. And if we can get our own people to come down and do some of that work too, suddenly they're not the only ones that get the final say. And to be clear, in Georgia, lobbyists include like corporate lobbyists and non-corporate lobbyists and advocates and stuff. But generally, like, if we want the people's voice to be heard, we need the people down at the Capitol. So.
Well,
I think I got everything. Okay, cool. Thank y'all for having me. Speaking of newsletters, we also send ours like every couple weeks, usually weekly during session, but you can find me everywhere. It's Ruwa, R-U-W-A, the number 4, Georgia spelled out. That's my handle, my website.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter, keep in touch, follow me on social medias, all that good stuff. So, but thank you, seriously, thank you for having me. I promise you I will take that back to them again. Be like, remember how I told you you should go adopt counties? Someone told me you should do that. So. But yeah, it sucks to like be right before anyone's ready to hear it. Like, that's the problem with being like young and progressive, is everyone's like, you're just too far, whatever. And I'm like, but that's all I'm hearing. So like, speaking of calling and making those complaints, like, it also helps. But seriously, thank y'all for, like I said, coming out here on a Saturday, answering all these questions. I know that like every time I talk to people, I'm giving you more assignments, but I hope at least it provides like some direction, and for you to know that there are a lot of us that are like willing to keep trying and being silly and being like, you know, we'll punch back as much as we can, and we just need to make sure we can land those punches in the future. So have a great one, y'all.